JD and Krug here. Susan Slusser on the line of the Chronicle. Susan, how are you?
I'm great. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. Let's start with the news of the day with the Giants lineup out. And, of course, they've dropped 6 in a row. Things are not going well. Last night was particularly ugly, the way that they played in Atlanta to take the 6th straight loss. But Rafael Devers is playing first base. A little flip-flop between Devers and Wilmer Flores. Flores is the DH. How surprised are you, Susan, that to see Devers playing first base right now tonight?
I talked to him before the All-Star break, and he was hopeful that it wasn't going to be too long. In fact, I think the thought was maybe with a little bit of time at the break and getting a little bit physically better, that would happen sooner than later. But what I like is really that this gives them a little bit of a, I don't know, maybe a boost. Like, here's a thing that was something we were kind of looking forward to it, and now it's happening, gives us a little bit of a different look. And for Devers, after kind of having to listen to all of this nonsense from Boston post-trade, I think he's got to be really happy because there were so many questions. There were people who were still saying just a couple of weeks ago, he's never going to play first base. You know, this is all just made up stuff. And here he is, he's doing it. So it's going to be interesting to see how he fares. He is not going to be perfect initially. There will be some bumps, some learning curves, but what you want to see is for every mistake that he takes something out of it. And he's shown throughout his career that he's a guy who could do that. That's how he's become Rafael Devers.
Susan, we're in our very vital Susan Slusser period of our summer vacation here, where we always we always lean on you for information, but we're really leaning on you now because the trade deadline's coming up, and there's any number of ways the Giants could play their hand, and you usually have the best information when it comes to that. On that note, I'm looking at MLB trade rumors right now, and it says the Giants have reached out to the Pirates about infielder Isaiah Kiner Falefa, who's had a really good year. I mean, offensively, he's hitting like almost 280. He's never really been an offensive player. He's been more of a defensive player. What do you think as far as the middle infield? This guy can play short. He can play second. He's a great defender who's having a bust-out offensive year. How viable do you think that is?
I actually had mentioned Kiner Falefa about 3 or 4 weeks ago. I'm not sure how much of a fit he is, or certainly a priority that position even is right now. But they're definitely, I've been hearing this long enough that certainly one side or the other has been talking about it, right? But again, not necessarily exactly what they need. To me, the first order of business right now is probably a starting pitcher, and I wouldn't have said that 2 or 3 weeks ago. Then a left-handed reliever, which is what I was saying for, ever since Eric Miller got hurt. So, hey, maybe that's where Kiner Falefa fits in. He is right-handed. You guys know I've been pushing very hard, including on this program, for Brent Rooker. The A's get rid of guys who are a little bit older, and even when they've signed them to extensions, sort of especially after they've signed them to extensions, right-handed hitter, very reasonable contract, and has played for Bob Melvin, all sorts of reasons to like him as a potential fit, including a guy who would be there beyond this season. So a little bit the sort of things that, Buster is looking for. But, hey, if they're looking to plug a little bit of a hole right now, I think that could be a guy who's a veteran and versatile.
Susan, on the Brent Rooker front, what, generally speaking, he is 30 years old and did sign the new contract, as you mentioned, but generally speaking, what type of return do you think the A's would be looking for in a deal involving Rooker? Because he is a pretty legit power threat.
Oh, he absolutely is. And look, this is mostly me saying this guy is a fit from what I've seen and from sort of the way the A's have gone about their business for, maybe even a dozen years, but certainly in the John Fisher era and in the pointing toward Vegas era, now that they know they're out of it, they thought at one point early on that they had a team that potentially could sneak into a wild card spot in not a very good division. But I think those hopes are long gone. So I like him. It certainly would take pitching. The A's do not have a lot of good pitching. So young starter, you got to start probably with a Wizenhunt. With the Giants' current situation with Birdsong really looking like, I'm hesitant to use the word yips, but goodness, when he suddenly lost the strike zone, which is not him at all, we've never seen anything like this from him. It gives you pause, and they might need another option. So, hey, my absolute insistence on the Giants getting Brent Rooker at some point might have to wait for another year.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, I do Wizenhunt for Rooker. I know a lot of Giants fans would say, "Oh no," but Rooker signed for, as you said, reasonable money to a 5-year deal that he just signed. Giants have a hard time getting quality power middle of the order bats with their name on a contract. Devers is obviously signed. Rooker's signed. In some ways, this might be the answer to what ails them in some respects. Last night was, what was the mood last night? Because I mean, you saw Acuna score from first on a ball that there's no way he should score on that play. I mean, that was the first time I've seen something that I just was sickened by. What was Bob's reaction to that in the post?
Well, I'm not there. Shayna Rubin is there for us, but from everything I saw, it certainly sounds like he was as disappointed and frustrated and upset about what happened last night. And what really I noticed was Willy Adames saying essentially everything is negative, which that is for somebody who's as upbeat and positive as Willy Adames. That's a pretty strong statement. But mistakes like that, and we've seen that so much. This team flashes potential, has really some good attributes. You can see the plan. You can see what Buster Posey's going for. You can see, the way things are taking shape. And then they are so prone to streakiness, and not in a good way, and mental mistakes and errors. And they've been preaching defense, fundamentals, not making these kind of mistakes since day one of spring training, because that's the only way a team that's a little lacking in offense is going to make the postseason. And yet they are really prone to these long stretches where they don't score and they make too many mistakes. And I've said for some time, I don't think that this is a leap for anybody to say that eventually this was all going to catch up with the pitching, because they're asking so much of them, relievers especially. The second half could be ugly unless some of these things are addressed. They have to play almost perfect baseball with the way that they look on offense most nights.
Susan, final one for me. How much do you think that Devers' ability to play first base and show he can do it here maybe in the next week plus, does it open up flexibility to make moves in terms of maybe you get an outfielder and then Ramos can DH some, or maybe you get somebody that can come in and DH some of the time, or in addition to obviously opening things up for Flores and to be more of a DH and get him off his feet and those kinds of things?
Well, that's amazing. We've seen how much more productive Flores is really in the DH role, partly because those legs are fresher. That's number one. But absolutely any bit of flexibility you have on your team makes you more able to deal. It depends, of course, the performance is going to matter, right? Not just Devers, but the flexibility elsewhere. If you're moving people around, it's really got to work for you to be able to feel like you have maybe a little extra that you could then trade. Who would that be? I don't know. The Giants are not in a situation where, they're looking for immediate help, but they also like guys who are on longer deals. I don't know who they would be trading, who would be really worthwhile, who wouldn't be valuable enough to keep right now in the situation they're in, particularly from an offensive standpoint, because you don't want to trade guys when their value is low. I mean, flat out. And a lot of these guys, their value is not nearly as high as it should be, given the way they've been hitting.
Susan, you're around Buster, and we don't get a chance to necessarily see him. I know he would love in this first year at the helm to see that, to lead this team into the playoffs. I mean, I think that was the goal. That was the reasoning behind the Devers trade. Now the Devers trade hasn't necessarily hit right away. I think the Giants still like it, but is he, I guess I'm asking you a tough question, but how desperate is Buster to use 2025 as the tone setter for his regime, or is he more balanced as far as trying to make the playoffs this year versus 2026 and beyond?
Well, every front office has sort of a short-term vision and a longer-term vision based on their current personnel, what they've got coming up, potential budget, and certainly Buster is looking at that. But I can tell you, just knowing Buster and anybody who's run across him, you guys aren't going to be surprised by this. You guys know Buster. He's going to want to win every season. That's the goal, is the playoffs every year for Buster, to the point where I would say it's more so than your run-of-the-mill top baseball executive. He is a fiery competitor, and he's really not going to accept excuses. This is the guy who, when he makes moves, says it's go time. I mean, it's pretty clear. This is how he's going to feel every season, and I think he's going to try to do whatever it takes. But they need to get Devers going. They really need to get Jung-Hoo Lee going. They need to figure out that fifth spot in the rotation. There's some pretty major hurdles right now when you look at the possibility of being successful this season.
Susan, great stuff. We really appreciate it. We'll talk to you next week.
Fantastic. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Susan.
All right, Susan Slusser of the Chronicle. Great stuff from her. Krug, we'll take a quick time out. We'll come back and we'll tie a bow on this Tuesday. Another show that just flew by and set the table for Dirty Work and the Giants, and us being down at Levi's beginning tomorrow as well. So all of that straight ahead. JD and Krug in for Papa and Silver here on the Sports Leader.